It's me again with another Scrap With Me tutorial. I just wanted to do a quick layout which has quite a few supplies, so I'm just going to run through them. You're going to need a couple colors of ink, some letter stamps. To be using this ribbon flower that I showed you in the Tips and Techniques tutorial. You'll need a stamp block, obviously, for your stamps. I'm going to be adding some liquid glass at the end. We'll be using pop dots and adhesive. You need your base page. And last, but definitely not least, in fact, most important, you need your papers. So here are the dimensions of the papers you're going to be using. You will need a solid color. I've got mine in the cocoa because I'm using the Emporium paper collection. You'll need 2 pieces that are 3 by 2 1/4, and I've mounted my photos on those, so those would be 2 3/4 by 2 photos. You will need 2 pieces of 3 1/2 by 4 inch paper, and I've mounted my photos on there, and the photos are 3 1/4 by 3 3/4. You will need 2 pieces of 4 by 6 paper, which I've mounted again with photos. Oh, those are upside down to you. The photos are 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, except of course you see this one, I didn't actually have a vertical photo, so I've kind of combined 2 photos into one, and that'll work for the spread. And then finally you'll need a 3 1/2 by 8 inch solid, and this is actually going to be the backing for your journaling block. As well, you are going to be using 3 pattern papers. One of your pattern papers, you're going to have 2 1 by 12 strips. You will have 2 2 by 12 strips. The other pattern paper you're going to use is going to have 2 3 1/4 inch strips. And finally, the last pattern paper, which is kind of a backing paper, so it's not really important that it has a big bold pattern, is actually going to be 6 by 12 inches. I've also cut a couple of little circles out of my one pattern paper that I'm going to use for embellish. Both pages are assembled in the same way. I got the layouts from pagemaps.com. The April 2009 page map shows this layout, and I've adapted it slightly. The only difference between the 2 pages, this is just the base layout, the only difference between the 2 pages is that one of your pages is going to have this journaling block, and it actually tucks underneath this bottom strip here. So I'm going to just do that, and then I'll show you the next steps. Okay, and that's the base page too. So you can see the only difference is that the main page has a journaling block and the second page doesn't. So it's going to look something like that to start off with. Okay, so now we're going to add the photos. For the first page, you're going to use your 3 1/2 by 4 squares, and you're just going to line them up along the top of the page. Then what we're going to do here is I would like to attach this flower. So I'm going to use a glue dot, which I forgot, so I'm going to go get that right. So I have my glue dots, and I've also actually cut this journaling strip because I realized I'm going to want to glue the flower onto that. So this journaling strip is just 3 by 5 inches. It's quite a bit smaller than the journaling block, but that's just how the layout is supposed to look. So I've got a 3 by 5 journaling block. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one glue dot to start and just put it on the center of the back of this brad here and give it a good push. I like to leave the glue dots on the roll as opposed to peeling them off. And then I'm just going to stick it in this corner here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut my glue dots actually in half, and I'm going to just peel a little bit of a glue dot, and I'm just going to zoom in here for you. So I'm just going to peel it, and I'm just going to stick it just about a 1/2 inch away from the center. Then I take my 2 petals and I just cover half of the glue dot and half of the glue dot, give it a push, and there we go. So I'm just going to do that for each of the flower petals. So there we go. So we've got the flower on the layout. And we're ready to do the next. So for this page, you're going to use the rest of your 4 photos. And the 6x6 photos are just going to go right over top of this center piece. There's no border on the top or the bottom of the photo. And it's just about a little less than a 1/4 inch off from the edge. I'm going to start on the outside edges and put them both just about a 1/4 inch off the edge, and then I can make sure that my middle 2 photos are centered nicely between. So for this page, what I'd like to do is I'd like to put a little emblem there. So I'm going to use my stamp set. I'm going to be using the Priceless Love word puzzle. This is, I believe, new to the summer catalog, and I'm going to be using this little bracket here, and I'm just going to stamp it in the cocoa. And I'm also going to stamp, let's see, Truly, Madly, Deeply, I think. Okay, and it comes with this little heart. I'm just going to do that on a smaller block. Okay, so I've stamped that one, Truly, Madly, Deeply, like this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to also stamp my letters for my title on the other page. And I'm going to use a technique called rock and rolls. I'm going to just zoom in here a little bit. And so what I'm going to do is when you do the rock and roll technique, you use your lighter color. This is my Vineyard Berry. And then you use your darker color. And this is my Cocoa. So I'm going to stamp in my Vineyard Berry. And that'll get my letter all with the Vineyard Berry color. Then I'm going to rock and roll. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to gently just kind of roll it around the edges of the stamp. But I'm not actually going to stamp it directly down in the pad. Then what you're going to see is that when I stamp my letter, I've got 2 colors. I've got the Vineyard Berry for most of it, and then it's kind of highlighted along the edges with the Cocoa. Okay, so now I've cut out all my elements and I've applied dimensionals to them. So I'm going to put my title just to the side here, and then that basically finishes the first page. I'll do some journaling here with the journaling pen, and I'm going to show you a little bit later how to add the liquid glass. For my second page, I've also cut out my stamped element, and I've got my dimensional attached to that, and I'm just going to put it in the middle between these 2 photos. What I also wanted to do is I wanted to carry this bottom pattern up to the top of the page. I felt like it was getting a little bit top heavy. So what I've done is I've cut out 3 of these little circles from that pattern paper, and I'm just going to adhere them at the top here. So now I'm going to use the liquid glass. Okay, so I'm just going to add this liquid glass on top of my embellishment, and I think I'm just going to add a line following around this red edge here, and then I'm going to do, and then I think I'll do the flower as well. And it's pretty easy to use. It tends to stay kind of where you put it. It doesn't run or anything like that. It's got a good consistency, but you do want to make sure that you're careful with it, because if it does go out of place, there's not a lot of remedying it. So basically, that is our layout. I'll twist it around here so you can take a look at it. Came together pretty quickly. Had a couple of techniques that we used in it, but not too tricky. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you're in and around the Edmonton area and have questions or would like me to do a demonstration of Close to My Heart and some of the things that you can do, give me a shout. Otherwise, I'll catch you next episode. Thanks for watching. Bye.